Commander Star stood on the bridge of the Imperial Enforcer Dominant Will, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical display with growing irritation. 50 years, that's how long the humans had been part of the galactic community, and already they were causing problems. The Verithian Galactic Empire had maintained order across 10,000 star systems for 3 millennia. They had simple rules, and species followed them. New species especially followed them. That was how things worked. It was how things had always worked until the humans arrived. Commander, his second officer chirped, her scales flashing the color of concern. The unauthorized construction continues. The humans refuse to halt their project. Star's tail twitched in annoyance. He pulled up the report again, reading it for the 5th time that cycle. Earth's orbital shipyards, massive energy signatures, power readings that suggested something enormous being built. And the humans, those strange 2-eyed mammals from a backwater system, claimed it was perfectly legal. What is their classification again? Star asked, though he knew the answer. Class D species, Commander, limited to Corvette-class vessels and basic FTL capability. Maximum vessel length of 200 m. No dreadnought construction permitted for at least 500 cycles. Star nodded. It was standard protocol. New species had to prove themselves first. They had to show they understood galactic law, that they could be trusted with real power. Dreadnoughts were for established species only, the kind of species that had earned their place through centuries of loyal service to the Empire. Humans had been in space for barely a whisper of time. They had no business building anything larger than a trading vessel. Assemble the enforcement squadron, Star ordered. 12 cruisers. We will inspect this construction and determine appropriate action. Yes, Commander. His second officer paused. Sir, the human diplomatic channels have been attempting to contact us. They wish to explain. I'm sure they do. Star's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his people. They always wish to explain after they break the rules. We will hear their explanations in person. The jump to human space took 3 days. Star used the time to review everything the Empire knew about humanity. It wasn't much. They were a young species only recently developing FTL technology. They came from a medium-sized planet they called Earth, orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Their technology was crude but functional. They had established colonies on a few nearby worlds and seemed obsessed with something they called industry. What struck Star as odd was their home system. Most species developed slowly, carefully. They built a few orbital stations, maybe a small shipyard. Humans had transformed their entire solar system in just 50 years. Their reports showed mining operations on dozens of moons and asteroids. They had stations around every planet, even the gas giants. They had even begun construction near their sun. It was aggressive, reckless even, very human, from what little Star understood of them. The diplomatic messages kept coming. A human ambassador named Chen kept insisting the construction was legal. It's a generation ship, she said in her last message, her face appearing on his screen with that strange human expression they called a smile. We're planning deep space exploration beyond the galactic rim. It's for civilians, Commander, scientists and their families. Completely peaceful. Star didn't believe her. He had seen this before with other species. They claimed peaceful intentions while building weapons. They smiled and talked about exploration while preparing for war. The Empire had maintained peace precisely because they stopped this behavior before it started. When his squadron finally dropped out of FTL at the edge of Earth's solar system, Star immediately ordered full scans. Reading multiple human vessels, Commander, his sensor officer reported. Mostly small craft, cargo haulers, shuttles, mining ships, nothing larger than permitted. And, the construction. The sensor officer hesitated. His scales flickered uncertain colors. It's, Commander. You should see this yourself. Star moved to the sensor station. The display showed Earth's orbital space crowded with human activity. Space stations, shipyards, defense platforms, and there, dominating everything else, was the construction. It was massive. How large? Star demanded. 15 kilometers, Commander. Current readings suggest it will reach 16 kilometers when complete. Star felt his blood chill. 15 kilometers. The dominant will was barely a kilometer long. Even the Empire's largest dreadnoughts rarely exceeded 5 kilometers. This thing dwarfed everything. Weapons scanning now, Commander. A pause. This is odd. Report. I'm reading, no weapon systems, sir. No plasma cannons, no missile tubes, no energy weapons of any kind. Star leaned closer to the display. That's impossible. Scan again. The sensor officer worked quickly, running multiple passes. Confirmed, Commander. No conventional weapons detected, but the power readings are enormous. I'm seeing massive energy systems, industrial equipment, what appears to be mining apparatus. Mining apparatus on a ship that size? Yes, Commander. Very large mining equipment. Also, refineries, processing plants, manufacturing systems. It's like they built a mobile industrial complex. Star didn't understand. Why would anyone put mining equipment on a 15 kilometers vessel? It made no sense. Unless it's a trick, he decided. The weapons are hidden or not yet installed. Move the squadron into close orbit. We will inspect this vessel directly. The 12 Verithian cruisers moved smoothly through human space. The smaller human vessels scattered before them, recognizing Imperial authority. Good. At least the humans understood that much. As they approached the massive construction, Star got his first direct visual. It hung in space like a small moon, its hull still partially incomplete. Humans in spacesuits swarmed over it like insects, welding and building. The hull itself looked strange, not like any ship design Star recognized. It was thick, layered with heavy plating that seemed excessive for any normal vessel. Hail them, Star ordered. A human appeared on screen. Female, Star thought, though he found it difficult to tell with their species. She wore a blue uniform with some kind of rank insignia. Commander Star, she said, her voice calm. I'm Captain Sarah Chen. Welcome to Earth. Captain Chen, I am here to inspect your unauthorized construction. By order of the Imperial Council, all construction must cease immediately pending our investigation. Chen's expression didn't change. With respect, Commander, our construction is completely authorized. This is the unbreakable labor. A civilian generation ship intended for deep space exploration. We filed all the appropriate documentation. A generation ship does not require a 15 kilometers hull, Captain. It does when you're planning a 1,000-year journey with 15,000 colonists, Commander. We need space for living quarters, hydroponic farms, manufacturing facilities, and enough raw materials to establish a new colony when we arrive. You expect me to believe this is a civilian vessel? It is a civilian vessel, Commander. I'm the chief engineer of the project. I can provide you with complete schematics if you'd like. Star considered. He could demand the schematics, review them for weeks, file reports with the council, or he could take direct action. Power down your construction, Captain. My squadron will be conducting a close-range inspection. Chen's expression finally shifted. It was subtle, but Star recognized it, annoyance. Commander, we're on a tight schedule. Every day of delay costs us millions of credits. Can we arrange a time that doesn't interrupt our work? The audacity. This is not a request, Captain. Power down now or I will interpret your refusal as hostile action. There was a long pause. Chen looked off screen, apparently consulting with someone. Then she looked back at Star. Very well, Commander, but I want it on record that we're complying under protest. Our lawyers will be filing complaints with the Imperial Trade Commission. So noted. Begin power down procedures. Actually, Commander, we can't completely power down. The reactor needs to maintain minimum output for safety reasons, but we'll cease all construction and open our airlocks for your inspection teams. Star nodded. It was a reasonable compromise. Acceptable. Prepare to receive our boarding parties. As his crews prepared their shuttles, Star studied the human vessel more closely. Something about it bothered him. The proportions were wrong. The hull was too thick, almost absurdly so, and those weren't standard construction materials. His sensors identified the outer layer as something called compressed neutronium composite. What is neutronium composite? He asked his science officer. The science officer consulted his database. It appears to be a human innovation, Commander. They compress neutron star matter and bond it with carbon lattices. It's incredibly dense and heat-resistant. Primarily used in their deep space mining operations. They mine in deep space. Apparently, they harvest materials from stellar coronas and gas giant atmospheres. The temperatures and pressures require exceptional hull strength. Star felt the first stirring of unease. He pushed it aside. So, the humans had developed some industrial materials. That didn't make this vessel anything other than what it appeared to be. His boarding shuttles launched, heading toward the massive human construction. Star watched on the tactical display as they approached the open airlocks. And then everything changed. Commander, his sensor officer shouted. Energy spike. The human vessel is powering up. Star spun to face the display. The unbreakable labor blazed with sudden light. Power flooded through its systems. Battle stations. All ships defensive formation. Prepare to. Wait, Commander. The sensor officer held up a hand. They're not targeting us. They're just running their systems. It's a routine power cycle. Star's hearts pounded. Explain. The vessel cycled to minimum power as requested. Now it's returning to standard operational levels. That's all. No weapons charging, no targeting locks, no hostile action. On the view screen, Captain Chen reappeared. She looked slightly embarrassed. Sorry about that, Commander. I forgot to mention, our reactor runs hot. When it cycles back up, there's a brief surge. Completely normal. Nothing to worry about. Star slowly sat back down. His hands were shaking slightly. That brief surge had put out more energy than his entire squadron combined. How powerful is your reactor, Captain? We're running a contained microstar system, Commander. It's the only way to generate enough power for our industrial operations. We need to operate refineries, manufacturing plants, and life support for 15,000 people simultaneously. A contained star. They had put a contained star inside their ship. Star had heard of such technology, but only in theoretical papers. The energy requirements alone. Resume your inspection, Commander, Chen said. My people will cooperate fully. You'll see there's nothing to worry about. But as Star watched his boarding parties enter the massive vessel, he realized he was already worried. Very worried. Because if this was what humans built for civilians, what would they build for war? The revelation. The inspection lasted 6 hours. Star's teams crawled through kilometers of corridors, examined hundreds of systems, and took thousands of readings. Their reports were consistent and troubling. No weapons, none at all. Just industrial equipment on a scale that defied belief, mining lasers that could cut through asteroids, gravity manipulators designed to move planetary masses, refineries that could process raw ore at temperatures that would melt most starship hulls, manufacturing systems that could produce anything from engine parts to prefabricated buildings. And that hull, that impossibly thick, absurdly over-engineered hull. Sir, his chief engineer reported, I tested the hull strength with our standard scanners. Commander, our plasma cannons wouldn't scratch this thing. It's designed to operate inside stellar atmospheres. The heat shielding alone is beyond anything we've ever seen. Star felt his unease growing into something approaching fear. They really did build a mining ship, he said quietly. Yes, sir. A very, very large mining ship. Star looked at the data one more time. Then he opened a priority channel to Imperial High Command. This is Commander Star. Priority Alpha transmission. Encryption level maximum. The face of Admiral Voxland appeared on screen. Report, Commander. Sir, the human construction is confirmed as a civilian vessel. Thought so, Admiral Voxland said. Star chose his words carefully. We may have a significant problem with this species. Explain. The vessel is not a warship, sir. It's a mining ship, but its capabilities exceed our military vessels in several critical areas. Its hull could survive our full weapons barrage. Its power generation is greater than our largest dreadnoughts. And Admiral, they're building 46 more of these. There was a long silence. Admiral Voxland's scales slowly turned the color of alarm. Commander, are you telling me that humanity's civilian mining fleet is more powerful than our military? Star looked at the unbreakable labor on his display. 15 kilometers of industrial might designed to tear apart planets and harvest stars. Sir, he said quietly, I'm telling you that the humans don't seem to understand the difference. Commander Star had been in the Imperial military for 30 cycles. He had fought pirates in the Outer Rim. He had enforced peace treaties between warring species. He had stared down rebel fleets and never flinched. But standing on the bridge of the dominant will, looking at the human mining ship on his display, Star felt something he hadn't experienced in years, fear. Commander, his weapons officer said hesitantly. Should we return to normal operations? The humans have been cooperative. The inspection is complete. Star didn't answer immediately. He was reading the final reports from his engineering teams. Each one made the situation worse. The unbreakable labor had hull plating designed to survive inside a sun. Its power systems could run an entire planet. Its industrial equipment could dismantle a moon in weeks. And it was just a mining ship. A civilian mining ship. Commander, the weapons officer prompted. Fire a warning shot, Star said suddenly. Every officer on the bridge turned to stare at him. Sir, his second officer asked, scales flashing confused colors. The humans have been fully cooperative. They've allowed our inspection. They've answered all our questions. A warning shot would be. I need to know, Star interrupted. I need to know if our weapons can even damage that thing. His second officer's mouth opened, then closed. She understood. If humanity decided to become hostile, the Empire needed to know if they could be stopped. Target the vessel's lower hull section, Star ordered. Minimal power, a single plasma bolt. Make it clear this is a weapons test, not an attack. The weapons officer hesitated, then nodded. Aye, Commander. Charging plasma cannon. Minimum power setting. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Firing. A bolt of superheated plasma streaked across space. It was barely a warning shot. Just enough energy to scorch normal ship plating. The kind of shot that would make a captain nervous but cause no real damage. It struck the unbreakable labor's hull and dissipated like morning dew. Damage assessment? Star asked quietly. The sensor officer worked his controls. Scanning. Commander. I'm reading no damage. No damage at all. The hull plating didn't even heat up. It's like we shot it with a spotlight. Increase power. 50% setting. Commander, that could be interpreted as hostile. Do it. Another plasma bolt lanced out. This one bright enough to light up the view screen. It hit the same spot on the hull and exploded in a shower of dissipating energy. Still no damage, Commander. The hull absorbed the impact completely. Before Star could order another shot, his communication console chimed. Captain Chen's face appeared on screen. She didn't look angry. She looked confused. Commander Star, are you testing your weapons on our ship? A necessary security measure, Captain. We needed to verify. Oh, we noticed the plasma bolts. Our external sensors flagged them. She glanced at something off-screen. You fired 2 shots at, let me see. Approximately 3% of your maximum output. 50%. Captain Chen blinked. Oh. Well, that's. Huh. Our sensors classified it as a navigation error. They thought you accidentally discharged your maneuvering thrusters in our direction. Star felt his stomach drop. Your sensors thought our plasma cannons were maneuvering thrusters. Well, yes. The energy level was so low that our automated systems didn't classify it as a threat. They logged it as minor background radiation. She leaned forward, and now she did look slightly concerned. Commander, is everything all right? If you're having technical problems with your weapon systems, we can send over some engineers. We have experience with plasma technology. Our weapons are functioning perfectly, Captain. Then why? Chen stopped. Understanding dawned on her face. Oh. Oh, you were testing whether you could damage our hull. I should have realized. I'm sorry, Commander. I should have explained our hull specifications more clearly. Explain them now, Star said, his voice tight. Chen nodded. The unbreakable labor is designed for extreme environment operations. We use ships like this to harvest materials from stellar coronas, gas giant atmospheres, and high-pressure environments. The hull is compressed neutronium composite layered over carbon lattice reinforcement backed by thermal superconductor mesh. Star understood perhaps one word in 3. In simple terms, Captain. In simple terms. Chen thought for a moment. Our mining ships need to fly into a sun and come back out. Your weapons simply don't generate enough heat or force to register as a threat to that kind of hull. It's not an insult, Commander. It's just different design philosophies. How much damage could our full squadron cause, Captain? If we fired everything we had? Chen looked uncomfortable with the question. I'd rather not speculate about combat scenarios, Commander. How much? She sighed. Honestly, based on your weapon specifications from the public registry, probably minimal. You might scratch the outer plating after sustained bombardment, but you wouldn't breach the hull. Again, it's not about weapon quality. You're just using weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat. Our ships are designed to survive environments that would vaporize most vessels. Star closed his eyes. 12 Imperial cruisers, the finest warships the Verithian military could produce, and they couldn't damage a civilian mining ship. There's something else you should know, Chen continued. The hull durability is actually a safety requirement. We work in environments where a single breach would kill everyone aboard. So, we over-engineer everything. It's standard practice for human industrial operations. Over-engineer, Star repeated. Yes, we build things much stronger than they need to be just to be safe. It's a human thing. We lose more people to industrial accidents than most species lose in wars. So, we compensate by making our equipment nearly indestructible. How many ships like this do you have currently operational? 47, we have 200 more in various stages of construction. Chen smiled that strange human smile. Humanity is expanding rapidly, Commander. We need a lot of mining and construction capacity to support our growth. 247, Star whispered. Well, the new ones will be even better. We've improved the reactor design and upgraded the refinery systems. The next generation should be able to process materials 20% faster. She said this with obvious pride, as if it was a good thing. Star's mind raced. 247 ships. Each one could shrug off his squadron's weapons like insects. Each one carried enough industrial power to dismantle planets. And the humans thought this was normal. They thought this was just mining equipment. Captain Chen, he said carefully. I need to ask you a very important question. Do humans have military vessels? Purpose-built warships? Chen looked surprised. Warships? No, not really. We have system defense platforms and patrol cutters for pirates, but nothing capital ship-sized. We've never needed them. Why would we? Most species in the galaxy seem pretty peaceful, and we've been focused on industrial expansion rather than military buildup. You have no dreadnoughts? No battle fleets? No, Commander. Is that a problem? Star almost laughed. A problem? The humans had built a civilian fleet that could crush the Empire's military, and they didn't even realize it. No, Captain, he said finally. No problem. Thank you for your cooperation. My squadron will be departing shortly. Safe travels, Commander. And if you need any technical specifications for your reports, just let us know. We're happy to help. The communication ended. Star sat in his command chair, staring at the massive human vessel on his display. Commander, his second officer asked quietly. What do we do? We report to Imperial High Command, Star said. We tell them the truth. Which is? Star pulled up the scan data one more time. Power readings, hull specifications, industrial capacity, all of it civilian, none of it military, and all of it terrifying. The truth, he said slowly, is that humanity is the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they don't even know it. His weapons officer spoke up. With respect, Commander, they're not dangerous. They're miners and engineers. They have no weapons. Exactly, Star said. They have no weapons because they don't need weapons. Look at that ship. Really look at it. His officer studied the display. What do you see? Star asked. I see a mining vessel, his second officer replied. Wrong. You see a weapon that thinks it's a tool. Star stood up and walked to the main display. He pointed at the massive drilling array on the ship's bow. That drill is designed to pierce planetary crust. It can reach a planet's core in hours. Now imagine that drill targeting a space station or a ship. Understanding dawned on his officers' faces. The gravity manipulators, Star continued, are meant to move asteroids, but they could just as easily rip a ship apart. The industrial lasers cut through solid rock, they would slice through our armor like paper. The refineries process ore at temperatures exceeding stellar cores. Our ships would melt before we got close enough to be a threat. But Commander, his science officer protested. The humans don't think of their equipment as weapons. It's just tools to them. Which makes them more dangerous, not less, Star said. A species with weapons knows they have weapons. They understand the threat they pose. They have protocols, rules, hesitation. But the humans, they would use their mining equipment as weapons and not even realize they were fighting a war. They would think they were just working. He sat back down, suddenly exhausted. Imagine if they did build actual warships. If they applied their industrial over-engineering philosophy to military vessels, what would that look like? Nobody answered. Nobody wanted to imagine it. Send the report, Star ordered. Priority Alpha. Flag it for immediate council review. Include all scan data, all specifications, everything. What should the summary say, Commander. Star thought for a long moment. Title it, The Human Problem. Contents: Humanity has constructed a civilian industrial fleet with capabilities exceeding our military vessels. They appear unaware of the military applications of their technology. Recommend immediate diplomatic engagement to establish clear protocols before humans realize what they have. Recommend military action, his tactical officer asked. Against what? Mining ships? Star shook his head. We can't fight them. Our weapons are useless. Our only option is to make sure they never want to fight us. As the Dominant were prepared to jump back to Imperial space, Star took one last look at the unbreakable labor. Humans swarmed over it again, resuming their construction like nothing had happened. They had no idea they had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Sir, his communication officer said, Captain Chen is sending a final message. She wants to know if we'd like a tour of their solar mining operations while we're here. She says it's quite impressive. They're in the process of dismantling Mercury for raw materials. Dismantling Mercury? She says they're going to process the entire planet. It should take them about 18 months. Star felt a headache building behind his eyes. Humans were going to dismantle a planet in 18 months with mining equipment, and they thought this was something to offer as a tourist attraction. Decline politely, Star said. Tell her we have urgent business elsewhere. Yes, sir. As his ship jumped to FTL, Star composed his personal log entry. Future historians would want to know what he had been thinking at this moment. Personal log, Commander Star. Today I discovered that the greatest military threat in galactic history doesn't know it's a military threat. Humanity builds industrial equipment that could conquer the Empire, and they use it to mine asteroids. They have the power to destroy us, and they're using it to build homes and farms. I don't know what terrifies me more, the thought of humans realizing what they have, or the thought of them never realizing it and accidentally crushing us while trying to mine the next asteroid. The Empress will need to make a decision. Do we restrict them before they become dangerous? Or do we befriend them before they accidentally become our executioners? I suspect the answer will define the future of the Empire. Perhaps the future of the galaxy. End log. He closed the file and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 200 more human mining ships were being built. 200 more weapons that didn't know they were weapons. The galaxy would never be the same. The demonstration. The Imperial Council chamber was designed to inspire awe. Its ceiling rose 300 meters overhead, carved from a single piece of crystalline stone. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing the 10,000 systems under Imperial control. 1,000 species, all united under Verithian rule. But today, Empress Talshara felt no pride in her domain. She felt only a cold knot of worry in her chest as she watched Commander Star's report for the third time. Show me the hull strength analysis again, she commanded. The display shifted, showing detailed scans of the human mining ship. Numbers scrolled past, each one worse than the last. Hull density 40 times standard dreadnought armor. Heat resistance capable of withstanding stellar corona temperatures. Structural integrity sufficient to survive gas giant atmospheric pressures. Your thoughts, Council? The Empress asked. Grand Admiral Voxland spoke first. His scales were the deep blue of serious concern. Your Majesty, with respect to Commander Star's thorough work, I believe his conclusions are alarmist. Yes, the human industrial ships are impressively built, but they lack weapons. They lack military training. They lack any sign of hostile intent. They lack weapons we recognize as weapons, corrected High Scholar Mirith, the Empire's chief scientist. She manipulated the display, highlighting various systems on the human ship. But look at their industrial equipment. This mining laser operates at energy levels exceeding our plasma cannons. This gravity manipulator could tear our ships apart. These refinery systems process materials at temperatures that would vaporize our hulls. But those are tools, not weapons, Admiral Voxland protested. The difference, Mirith said quietly, is intention, not capability. The Empress leaned forward. Explain. A knife is a tool in the kitchen. It becomes a weapon in a fight. The humans have built kitchens into their ships. Very, very dangerous kitchens. Mirith pulled up more data. More concerning is their philosophy. Humans over-engineer everything because they work in lethal environments. They make their civilian equipment stronger than our military equipment because they refuse to accept casualties. Surely that's a good thing, said Counselor Felix, speaking for the diplomatic corps. A species that values life highly is less likely to be aggressive. Or more likely to be absolutely unstoppable if provoked, the Empress said. She had been reading reports all morning. The more she learned about humans, the more worried she became. Tell me about their industrial operations. Mirith pulled up a display of humanity's home system. They have transformed their solar system in 50 years. Mining operations on every planetoid, refineries around gas giants, harvesting stations skimming their sun. They have processed more raw materials in 5 decades than most species process in 5 centuries. Where are they sending all these materials? The Empress asked. Colony construction, shipbuilding, habitat creation. They're expanding at an unprecedented rate. 47 major colony worlds established, each with full industrial capacity. 200 orbital habitats. And they're just getting started. Admiral Voxland shifted uncomfortably. Expansion is not a crime, Your Majesty. Many species expand rapidly during their early spacefaring period. At what rate? The Empress asked. Mirith answered immediately. The average species expands to 12 colony worlds in their first century of FTL travel. Humans have established 47 in 50 years. They're expanding at nearly 10 times the normal rate. They have the population for it. No, Your Majesty. They're growing their population simultaneously with their expansion. Massive birth incentive programs, cloning research, even artificial womb technology. They treat population growth as an industrial challenge to be solved. The Empress felt her unease growing. Why are they in such a hurry? I had my analysts investigate that question, Mirith said. She pulled up a human document translated into Verithian script. This is from their Global Expansion Council. I'll quote the relevant section. Humanity must expand rapidly to ensure species survival. We cannot risk concentration in a single system. We must spread throughout the galaxy to guarantee that no single catastrophe can eliminate us. They fear extinction, the Empress said. They're paranoid about extinction, Mirith corrected. It drives everything they do. Their over-engineered ships, their rapid expansion, their industrial obsession. They're trying to make humanity too big and too spread out to ever be wiped out. Counselor Felix spoke up. Your Majesty, I fail to see how this is a threat. A species concerned with survival is not a species planning conquest. Unless someone threatens them, the Empress said quietly. Then what happens? Silence fell over the council chamber. The Empress stood and walked to the central display. She manipulated the controls, pulling up a simulation her military analysts had prepared. It showed a human mining ship engaging an Imperial cruiser. Watch, she commanded. The simulation played. The human ship made no aggressive moves. It simply continued its normal operations, mining, processing, refining. The Imperial cruiser fired. The human ship's shields absorbed the damage effortlessly. The cruiser fired again and again. The human ship, still not recognizing it was under attack, activated its mining laser to clear debris. The laser swept across the cruiser's hull, cutting it in half like paper. That simulation assumes the human ship never realizes it's in combat, Mirith explained. It simply continues working, and its work destroys the cruiser. Now, imagine if the humans did recognize a threat. Imagine if they actually tried to fight. She ran a second simulation. This time, the human ship identified the cruiser as hostile. It turned its mining laser into a cutting weapon. It used its gravity manipulators to tear off the cruiser's hull plating. It deployed its cargo drones, thousands of them, each one capable of attaching to an enemy ship and cutting through to critical systems. The battle lasted 30 seconds. The cruiser was dismantled, not destroyed, taken apart piece by piece with industrial efficiency. "This is one mining ship," the Empress said. "They have 47 operational, 200 more under construction. And these are just civilian vessels." Admiral Voxland's scales had gone pale. "Your Majesty, what do you propose?" "That is the question," the Empress said. She returned to her throne. "We have several options. We can restrict their expansion. We can demand they reduce their industrial capacity. We can occupy their space and enforce direct imperial control. That would require sending the Grand Fleet," Admiral Voxland said. "And after seeing these simulations, I'm not confident the Grand Fleet could successfully occupy human space. Not without massive losses." "Then we have a problem," the Empress said. "We have a species that could potentially threaten the Empire, but they don't know they're a threat. They think they're miners and builders. If we attack them, we might turn peaceful industrialists into desperate warriors. If we leave them alone, they might eventually realize their own power." "There is a third option," Counselor Felix said hesitantly. "We could befriend them. Make them allies rather than enemies. And if they turn on us later? Then we face the same problem we face now, Your Majesty. But at least we would have time to prepare. Time to develop new weapons, time to understand their technology." The Empress considered this. It was logical. Dangerous, but logical. "What do we know about human psychology?" she asked. "What motivates them beyond survival?" Mirith pulled up another report. "They're remarkably cooperative as a species. Numerous factions, yes, but they unify against external threats quickly. They value loyalty, fair dealing, and mutual benefit. They're also intensely curious and eager to learn. Can they be trusted? Based on their diplomatic record so far, yes. They've honored every treaty and agreement. They're sometimes naive in galactic politics, but never dishonest." The Empress made her decision. "Admiral, prepare the Grand Fleet. Not for invasion, for demonstration. I want 300 ships positioned at the edge of human space." "Your Majesty." Admiral Voxland looked confused. "We will show the humans our strength," the Empress explained. "We will make clear that we could destroy them if we wished. Then we will offer friendship instead. It's a risk, but a calculated one. If they are reasonable, they will understand the wisdom of alliance. If they are not, then we learn what human warships look like," Admiral Voxland finished grimly. "Precisely. Counselor Felix, prepare a diplomatic mission. You will accompany the fleet. Your task is to negotiate a treaty that limits human military development while allowing their industrial expansion to continue. That may be difficult, Your Majesty. They don't have military development to limit." "Then make them promise not to start any," the Empress said. "And make sure they understand why. If they're as intelligent as they seem, they'll grasp the implications. And if they refuse?" The Empress looked at the simulation again. The human mining ship dismantling an Imperial cruiser with casual efficiency. "Then we pray to every god and every faith that they remain peaceful. Because if humanity decides to build warships with the same philosophy they use for mining ships, the galaxy is going to change forever." Over the next 3 weeks, the Empire mobilized 300 warships. The entire Grand Fleet converged on a staging area near human space. It was the largest military deployment in a century. On the flagship Eternal Victory, Admiral Voxland reviewed the battle plans with growing unease. Not because he thought the humans would fight back, but because he wasn't sure victory was possible even if they did fight back. Status report, he commanded. All ships in position, Admiral, his tactical officer reported. We're at the edge of human detection range. Ready to proceed on your command. Counselor Felix, is your diplomatic team prepared? The counselor, looking distinctly uncomfortable aboard a warship, nodded. We have prepared multiple scenarios. The ideal outcome is that humans agree to military restrictions without confrontation. And if they don't agree, then we pray your fleet is sufficient to force compliance. Admiral Voxland looked at his tactical display. 300 warships, the pride of the Empire, and he wasn't confident they could win against 47 mining ships. Something troubles you, Admiral? Counselor Felix asked. I'm a military officer, Voxland said. I've spent my life studying warfare. I understand tactics, strategy, weapons, defense. But I don't understand this. I don't understand how a species can be so dangerous without trying to be dangerous. Perhaps, Felix said thoughtfully, that's because we've never encountered a species that treats survival as an engineering problem rather than a military one. We build weapons to survive. They build better ships instead. Is that better or worse? I honestly don't know. The fleet jumped into human space 2 days later. 300 warships appearing simultaneously at the edge of a human mining operation in the Tiety system. The human response was immediate, but it wasn't military. The first communication came from a mining coordinator named Rodriguez. Hello. This is Tiety Mining Station 7. We're detecting a lot of ships. Is there a fleet exercise happening? Do you need us to clear the area? Admiral Voxland stared at the display. The humans thought this was an exercise. They saw 300 warships and assumed it was a training operation. This is Admiral Voxland of the Imperial Grand Fleet, he said slowly. We are here on behalf of the Varathian Empire. We require immediate communication with your government. There was a pause. Oh, you're here for the treaty talks. Captain Chen mentioned something about that. Give us a few minutes to patch you through to Earth. Oh, and welcome to Tiety. If you need any supplies or maintenance, we can help. We've got great facilities here. The communication ended. The Admiral looked at Counselor Felix. They offered us maintenance, Voxland said in disbelief. They're civilians, Felix replied. They see 300 ships and think about logistical support, not military threat. Are they insane or brave? Possibly both. The communication reconnected. This time, Captain Sarah Chen appeared on screen. The same human from Commander Thar's report. Admiral Voxland, she said cheerfully, this is quite an impressive fleet. Is this a formal state visit? We weren't expecting such a large delegation, but we can certainly accommodate. Give us a few hours to arrange proper facilities. Captain Chen, the Admiral said carefully, this is not a social visit. This is a show of military force. Chen's smile faded slightly. A show of force? I don't understand. Has something happened? Are we under threat? You are potentially becoming the threat, Captain. Now Chen looked genuinely confused. Admiral, I really don't understand. We've complied with all regulations. We've been cooperative with all inspections. What are we doing wrong? And there it was. The heart of the problem. The humans had no idea they were dangerous. Captain, Admiral Voxland said, we need to talk about your mining ships. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the conference room of the Unbreakable Labor, trying to understand what was happening. Through the viewport, she could see 300 Imperial warships arranged in perfect formation. It was intimidating. It was also confusing. Let me make sure I understand correctly, she said to Admiral Voxland's image on the screen. You're concerned about our mining ships because they're too durable. It's not just the durability, Captain, the Admiral replied. His scales were showing colors she had learned meant stress. It's the entire capability package. Your ships are more survivable than our dreadnoughts. Your power generation exceeds our capital ships. Your industrial equipment could be weaponized to devastating effect. Chen looked around at her engineering team. They all seemed equally confused. But Admiral, she said carefully, they're mining ships. They're supposed to be durable. We work in stellar coronas and gas giant atmospheres. If our ships weren't tough, our crews would die. It's just basic industrial safety. Basic industrial safety, Admiral Voxland repeated. He sounded like he was in pain. Captain, your basic industrial safety exceeds our military specifications by a factor of 10. Well, yes. We need margins for error. Human space operations have a lot of accidents. We overbuild everything to keep our people alive. She gestured around the room. It's standard engineering practice. You don't build something to exactly the specifications you need. You build it 3 times stronger just in case. 3 times stronger at minimum. For critical life support systems, we use 10 times safety margins. For hull plating, we aim for 50 times. The Admiral made a sound that might have been a groan. 50 times. Is that unusual? Chen asked. She was starting to realize that human engineering standards might be different from other species. Very different. Captain Chen, Admiral Voxland said slowly. The Empire uses safety margins of approximately 10%. We build ships to be 10% stronger than expected operational requirements. Chen blinked. 10%. But that's nothing. What happens if something unexpected occurs? What if you encounter a solar flare or radiation burst or unexpected debris? We avoid those situations. We plan our routes carefully. We use shields and armor to protect against anticipated threats. But what if you can't avoid it? What if there's an emergency? Then we accept casualties as an unavoidable cost of spacefaring. Chen felt something cold settle in her stomach. You accept casualties. You build ships knowing they'll fail if conditions get too difficult. And you just accept that people will die. It's the nature of space travel, Captain. No, Chen said firmly. No, it's the nature of inadequate engineering. You can prevent those deaths. You just choose not to because it's more expensive. The Admiral's scales flashed an angry red. We choose not to because it's impossible to prevent every possible failure scenario. Resources are limited. We must balance cost against benefit. Human lives are not a cost-benefit analysis, Admiral. And that, Admiral Voxland said quietly, is exactly why we're here. Your species refuses to accept casualties, so you build machines that cannot be destroyed. You over-engineer everything until it becomes a weapon. Do you understand the problem now? Chen took a deep breath. She was starting to understand. The Empire saw human safety standards as military aggression. They couldn't conceive of building something so durable unless it was meant for war. Admiral, she said carefully. I think we have a fundamental philosophical difference. Humans don't build durable ships because we're preparing for war. We build them because we refuse to send our people into death traps. It's not about military power. It's about responsibility. The result is the same, Captain. You have ships that our weapons cannot damage. Then build better weapons, Chen said, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. What I meant was. We know what you meant, Captain, the Admiral interrupted. And that's precisely the issue. You think in terms of engineering solutions. If something isn't strong enough, make it stronger. If shields fail, make better shields. You solve every problem with better technology. Yes, that's how progress works. That's how arms races work, Captain. One side builds better weapons, the other side builds better armor, then stronger weapons, then stronger armor. It escalates until entire civilizations are destroyed. Chen felt her frustration growing. We're not in an arms race. We're just trying to mine asteroids and build colonies without killing people. And you've accidentally created the most powerful civilian fleet in galactic history in the process. There was a long silence. Chen looked at her team again. They all looked as lost as she felt. So, what do you want us to do? She asked finally. Stop building ships. Abandon our colonies. Let our people die in ships we know are inadequate just to make you feel safer. We want you to understand what you have, Admiral Voxland said. And we want assurances that you'll never use it aggressively. We don't want to use it at all. It's mining equipment. Demonstrate that. Show us these ships are truly as harmless as you claim. Chen felt anger rising. How exactly do I demonstrate that a mining ship is harmless? What do you want me to do? You want to shoot my ship? With your permission. Yes. Chen almost laughed. Admiral, you already shot my ship. Commander Thar fired on us during his inspection. We barely noticed. That was 2 shots at minimal power. We need a full-scale weapons test. We need to know if our fleet could stop your ships if necessary. And if I refuse? Then we must assume the worst about your intentions. Chen felt trapped. If she allowed the test, she'd be proving her ship could withstand military assault, which would only increase Imperial paranoia. If she refused, they'd assume she was hiding military capabilities. Fine, she said finally. You can run your test. But I want it on record that the Unbreakable Labor is a civilian vessel operating under civilian protocols. This test is happening under protest and only to demonstrate our peaceful intentions. Agreed, Captain. We will approach slowly. You may withdraw your crew to a safe distance if you prefer. Chen shook her head. My crew stays aboard. If you're going to shoot our ship, we're going to operate it. That's non-negotiable. Captain. That's non-negotiable, Chen repeated firmly. This is my ship, my crew. If you want to test whether we're a threat, you'll do it with us aboard. That way, you'll see we're not afraid of you because we're not your enemy. Admiral Voxland was quiet for a long moment. Very well. We'll begin in 1 hour. I suggest you activate all defensive systems. We don't have defensive systems, Admiral. Just industrial equipment and a really thick hull. That may be sufficient, the Admiral said grimly and disconnected. Chen turned to her crew. All right, everyone. We're about to become a target practice ship for the Imperial fleet. I need everyone at their stations. This is going to be a long day. Her chief engineer, a grizzled veteran named Martinez, spoke up. Captain, should we power up the mining equipment? Just in case. No, we run normal operations only. I want them to see we're exactly what we claim to be. No weapons, no combat systems, just a civilian mining ship. They're going to shoot us, Captain. Yes. And we're going to sit here and take it like a rock takes rain because that's what we are. A big dumb rock that happens to have people inside. We're not a threat. We're just engineers trying to do our jobs. The hour passed slowly. Chen watched the Imperial fleet maneuver into position. 300 warships all focused on her ship. It should have been terrifying. Instead, she mostly felt annoyed. She had work to do, processing schedules to maintain, quotas to meet, and now she had to waste time proving to paranoid aliens that her mining ship wasn't secretly a battleship. Incoming transmission, her communications officer announced. Admiral Voxland's face appeared again. Captain Chen, we're ready to begin. We'll start with minimum power and gradually increase until we observe measurable damage. You may still withdraw your crew. Crew stays, Admiral. Fire when ready. The first barrage came seconds later. 6 Imperial cruisers opened fire simultaneously, their plasma cannons lighting up space with brilliant energy. The bolt struck the unbreakable Labor's hull and dissipated harmlessly. Damage report, Chen called out. No damage, Captain, Martinez reported. Hull temperature increased by 0.3 degrees, within normal operational variance. Chen keyed the communication. Admiral, I'm reading no damage. Your attack registered as background radiation on our sensors. Increasing power to 25%. The second barrage was brighter, more intense. Chen felt the ship shudder slightly as the energy transfer created minor vibrations through the hull. Still no damage, Captain, Martinez said. Hull temperature up by 0.02 degrees. That's still less than the temperature variation from being in sunlight. This continued for an hour. The Imperial fleet fired with increasing power and desperation. 50% power, 75%, full power. Nothing worked. The unbreakable Labor sat in space absorbing punishment that would have vaporized any normal ship. And its crew calmly monitored their systems. Admiral, Chen said after the 10th barrage, I really think you've made your point. Our hull can take a beating. Can we stop now? We're behind schedule on our refining operations. One more test, Captain, Admiral Voxland said. He sounded exhausted. All ships, concentrate fire on a single point. Maximum power, sustained bombardment. Let's see if we can at least scratch them. The entire fleet opened fire. 300 warships pouring every ounce of their power into one spot on the unbreakable Labor's hull. Energy enough to sterilize a planet concentrated on a 10-meter section of plating. The ship shook. Alarms began beeping as external sensors reported extreme localized heating. Now we're talking, Martinez said, actually sounding interested. Hull temperature at that focal point has reached 800 degrees. That's enough to cook dinner. Any damage? Chen asked. Define damage. The outer paint layer is discoloring. That's about it. Chen almost laughed. The entire Imperial fleet firing everything they had, and they were damaging the paint job. Captain, her communications officer said urgently. The Admiral is hailing. He sounds distressed. Chen accepted the communication. Admiral Voxland looked like he had aged a decade. Captain Chen, we've been firing at maximum power for 6 minutes. Our weapons are beginning to overheat. We must cease fire. Understood, Admiral. I appreciate the thoroughness of your test. Captain, how is this possible? How can your ship withstand this much punishment? Chen sighed. Admiral, I've tried to explain. We built this ship to operate inside stellar coronas. The surface temperature of a sun is 5,000 degrees. Your weapons generated maybe 800 degrees at the focal point. You're not even close to our operational tolerances. But surely sustained fire would. Admiral, we routinely spend weeks at a time harvesting material from stellar atmospheres. Your 6-minute barrage is nothing compared to hours of solar immersion. You could fire at us for days and never exceed our heat dissipation capacity. The Admiral's scales had gone a dull, defeated gray. Then it's true. Our weapons are useless against you. Against our civilian ships, yes. I'm sure you could do significant damage to our unarmored shuttles or habitats. But industrial vessels like this one, they're built to survive things much worse than weapon fire. Captain, I need you to answer a question honestly. If humans decided to become hostile, if you turned this ship against Imperial targets, what could stop you? Chen thought about that. Really thought about it. Honestly, Admiral, I don't know. We've never thought about using our equipment as weapons. But if we did. She looked around her ship at the mining lasers that could cut through planetary crust, at the gravity manipulators that could move moons, at the refinery systems that operated at stellar temperatures. I suppose nothing in your fleet could stop us. We'd just keep working until we processed your ships into raw materials. And that doesn't frighten you? Why would it frighten me? We're not going to do that. We have asteroids to mine and colonies to build. We don't have time for war. Admiral Voxland made a sound that might have been laughter or crying. Captain Chen, you are either the most naive being in the galaxy or the most honest. I honestly cannot tell which. Can I be both? You already are. The Admiral took a deep breath. I'm calling off the test. Your point is proven. Your ship is effectively indestructible by our weapons. I will report this to the Empress. What happens now? Now, Captain, we negotiate because the Empire has just learned it cannot defeat humanity by force. So, we must find another way to coexist. We've been telling you that from the beginning, Admiral. We want to be friends, not enemies. Friends, the Admiral repeated. Yes, I think that's our only option because the alternative is trying to fight an enemy that thinks plasma bombardment is light rain. The transmission ended. Chen turned to her crew. They were all watching her with various expressions of relief and uncertainty. Well, she said, that went better than expected. Nobody died and we proved we're not dangerous. Captain, Martinez said carefully. I think we proved the exact opposite. We proved we're very dangerous. We just also proved we don't want to be. Chen considered that. Is there a difference to them? Probably not. Then I guess we'll find out what comes next. Chen pulled up her work schedule. In the meantime, we've lost 8 hours of productivity. Let's get back to actual mining operations. Those asteroids aren't going to process themselves. As her crew returned to work, Chen looked out at the Imperial fleet. 300 warships, the pride of an empire, floating helplessly after failing to scratch a single mining ship. She felt a strange mixture of emotions, pride in human engineering, worry about what this meant for human-alien relations, and mostly a lingering frustration that she'd wasted 8 hours on this nonsense when she had quotas to meet. Humans, she decided, had very different priorities than the rest of the galaxy. And maybe that was the scariest thing of all. The treaty. The Verithian throne world had seen many historic moments. Treaties signed, wars ended, new species welcomed into the Empire. But Empress Talshara doubted any previous moment had been quite like this one. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the Grand Council chamber, wearing what appeared to be a standard work uniform rather than formal diplomatic attire. Behind her were 6 other humans, all engineers or mining coordinators based on their credentials. They had arrived not in a diplomatic shuttle, but in a mining ship. Because, as Chen had explained with apparent sincerity, that's all they had. The unbreakable labor now orbited the throne world. Its massive bulk making the orbital defense platforms look like children's toys. Half the Imperial military was having nervous breakdowns about it. The other half was trying to figure out how to build something similar. Captain Chen, the Empress began. Thank you for coming to discuss terms of our future relationship. Of course, Your Majesty, Chen replied. She had been briefed on proper protocol but still managed to make the formal address sound casual. Though, I have to say, I'm still not entirely sure what we're discussing. Your Admiral kept talking about military restrictions, but we don't have a military to restrict. There it was, the fundamental disconnect that had brought them to this moment. Let me be direct, Captain, the Empress said. Your species has built a civilian fleet with capabilities exceeding our military forces. Whether you intended this or not is irrelevant. The reality is that humanity poses an existential threat to the Empire. Chen frowned. With respect, Your Majesty, we pose no threat at all. We're miners and engineers. We build colonies and process asteroids. We've never shown any hostile intent toward anyone. Your intent is not in question, Captain. Your capability is. The Empress gestured to the holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed the recent weapons test. 300 Imperial warships failing to damage a single human vessel. We fired everything we had at your ship. We could not scratch it. Do you understand what that means? It means we have good hull plating, Chen offered. Admiral Voxland, standing to the side, made a strangled sound that might have been laughter or despair. It means, the Empress said patiently, that if humanity decided to become hostile, the Empire could not stop you. Your mining ships could devastate our fleets. Your industrial equipment could tear apart our stations. Your civilian infrastructure is more powerful than our military. Surely, you see the problem. Chen looked genuinely confused. But we're not going to become hostile. Why would we? We have everything we need. We're expanding peacefully. We've traded with dozens of species without incident. We have no reason to fight anyone. You have no reason today, Counselor Felix interjected gently. But what about tomorrow? What if there's a dispute over territory? A trade disagreement? A cultural misunderstanding? Most species have weapons as a deterrent precisely because intentions can change. Then we'd negotiate, Chen said simply. We'd talk through the problem and find a solution that works for everyone. And if negotiation failed, then we'd try harder to negotiate. War is expensive and wasteful. It destroys resources and kills people. From a purely efficiency standpoint, it makes no sense. The Empress studied the human captain. She seemed completely sincere. Not naive exactly. More like someone who had never seriously considered violence as a solution because better solutions were always available. Captain Chen, the Empress said slowly. I want to ask you a hypothetical question. If humans did build a military warship, what would it look like? Chen blinked. A military warship? I've never really thought about it. We don't need warships. Humor me. If you had to design one based on human engineering principles, what would you build? Chen considered this for a long moment. The Empress could see her engineering mind working through the problem. Well, Chen said finally, I suppose we'd start with a mining ship hull. It's already durable and reliable. Then we'd add weapon systems. Probably scaled-up versions of our industrial lasers for precision work. Mass drivers using our cargo launcher technology for long-range bombardment. Maybe retrofit the gravity manipulators for defensive shielding or offensive capability. What about armor? Admiral Voxland asked despite himself. The existing hull would be fine. It already withstands stellar temperatures. We might add reactive plating for redundancy. But honestly, the standard compressed neutronium composite should be sufficient. Power generation. This from the Empress. Our civilian reactors would work, but we'd probably upgrade to a dual-core system for redundancy. Can't have weapons going offline during combat. Maybe add some auxiliary fusion plants for emergency backup. Size? 20 kilometers. Maybe. You'd want space for crew quarters, ammunition storage, manufacturing facilities so you can repair damage in the field, hydroponic farms for long deployments. 30 kilometers would be safer. More room for redundant systems. The council chamber had gone very quiet. The humans were casually describing a nightmare. Captain Chen, the Empress said carefully. Do you realize you've just outlined a warship that would be completely unstoppable by any force in the known galaxy? Chen looked surprised. Really? It's just basic engineering. Nothing fancy. I was actually going conservative with the design. You could probably go bigger if you wanted to. Bigger? The Empress repeated faintly. Sure. The manufacturing challenges are the same whether you build a 20 km ship or a 50 km ship. Might as well go bigger and have more operational flexibility. Admiral Voxland sat down heavily in a chair despite protocol. His scales had gone the color of shock. 50 kilometers. She's suggesting a 50 kilometers warship as a conservative design. Is that big? Chen asked. How big are your dreadnoughts? 5 kilometers, the admiral said hollowly. Our largest dreadnoughts are 5 kilometers. Oh. Chen looked embarrassed. Sorry, I didn't realize. I guess I was thinking in terms of industrial scale. We build big because we need the space for equipment and supplies. Different design philosophy, I suppose. Different, the Empress agreed. Captain Chen, I need you to understand something. What you just described is not just a warship. It's a ship that could single-handedly destroy the Imperial fleet. Probably multiple times over. Well, yes, I suppose if you... Chen stopped. Understanding finally dawned on her face. Oh. Oh, you're not worried about what we have. You're worried about what we could build if we wanted to. Precisely. Chen looked at her team. They were all having similar realizations, their expression shifting from confusion to comprehension. Your Majesty, Chen said slowly. You have to understand, humans don't think in terms of military power. We think in terms of safety margins and engineering challenges. When you asked me to design a warship, my brain went to, how do we keep the crew alive and the systems running, not, how do we kill enemies efficiently. And yet the result is the same. Yes. I see that now. Chen took a deep breath. So, what do you want from us? A promise not to build warships? Would you keep that promise? Yes, absolutely. We have no desire to build weapons. None at all. We'd be happy to formalize that in a treaty. And if another species threatened you? If someone attacked your colonies or ships? Chen thought about that. We'd defend ourselves with what we have. Mining ships, cargo haulers, whatever was available. But we wouldn't build dedicated warships unless we absolutely had to. And even then, we'd probably try to negotiate first. You'd defend your civilians with civilian equipment? It's worked so far. Your fleet couldn't damage the unbreakable labor. I'm betting most hostile species would have similar problems. Our mining ships are tougher than most warships just as a side effect of their job requirements. The Empress leaned back in her throne. This was the strangest negotiation she had ever conducted. The humans were offering exactly what she wanted, a promise not to militarize, but she wasn't sure it mattered. They were already more dangerous than any military power in the galaxy. Let me propose terms, the Empress said. Full Imperial membership for humanity. No restrictions on expansion or industrial development. Complete autonomy over your territory. In exchange, humans agree not to develop purpose-built military warships or offensive weapon systems. Your civilian fleet may continue as is, but no dedicated war vessels. That sounds reasonable, Chen said. Though I should mention, we'd want to reserve the right to self-defense if attacked. We wouldn't shoot first, but we'd defend ourselves if necessary. Using your mining equipment? If that's all we have, yes. Which would be devastating to any attacker. Probably. But they started it, not us. The Empress almost smiled. There was something refreshing about human directness. Agreed. Self-defense is acceptable. The restriction is on offensive military development only. We can work with that. What about technology sharing? Your admiral mentioned wanting to learn from our industrial systems. We would be interested in technology exchange. Yes, particularly your hull manufacturing and reactor technology. Chen shook her head. The reactor technology is dangerous in the wrong hands. We nearly blew up Mars twice during early testing. It requires extreme safety protocols and a lot of redundant systems. But hull manufacturing? We can share that. It's just metallurgy and material science. Nothing dangerous. Nothing dangerous, the Empress repeated. Captain, your hull manufacturing is more advanced than anything in the Empire. Really? It's just compressed neutronium bonding. It's not complicated once you understand the crystalline structure. We have training manuals if you want them. The Empress exchanged glances with her council. The humans were offering to share technology that would revolutionize Imperial shipbuilding casually, as if it was no big deal. We would appreciate that, Captain. In return, we can offer advanced FTL mathematics and navigation algorithms. Our technology is more refined than yours in that area. That would be great, Chen actually smiled. Our FTL drives work fine, but they're inefficient. Better calculations would save us a lot of fuel costs. And just like that, they were negotiating as equals, as partners. The threat had become an ally through simple honesty and mutual benefit. Then we have an agreement, the Empress said. I'll have my legal team draft the formal treaty. You'll have full review rights before signing, of course. Thank you, Your Majesty. This has been much easier than I expected. Chen hesitated. I have to ask, though, why bring the entire Grand Fleet? If you wanted to negotiate, why the military demonstration? Honestly? The Empress decided to return Chen's directness. We needed to know if we could stop you if we had to. The test wasn't just to prove your capabilities. It was to prove our limitations. And now that you know you can't stop us, now we make sure we never need to try. We befriend you, Captain. We make humanity a partner rather than a potential enemy. Because if we tried to fight you, we would lose. Better to have you on our side. Chen nodded slowly. I appreciate the honesty, Your Majesty. For what it's worth, we never wanted to be intimidating. We just wanted to be safe. Your safety became our danger, Captain. But I think we can turn that into mutual security instead. I'd like that. The formal negotiations took 3 weeks. The treaty was comprehensive, covering everything from trade agreements to technology exchange to territorial boundaries. Throughout it all, the unbreakable labor remained in orbit, a constant reminder of what humanity represented. On the final day, as the treaty was signed, the Empress met privately with Captain Chen. I have one last question, Captain, the Empress said. What would it take for humans to actually build a warship? What would have to happen? Chen was quiet for a long moment. Honestly? I don't know. We'd have to feel truly threatened. Not just a border dispute or trade argument, but existential threat. Someone would have to attack us so severely that our civilian ships couldn't handle it. They'd have to prove that our safety margins weren't enough. Let's hope that never happens. Agreed. Because if humans did decide to build actual warships. Chen trailed off. Yes, Your Majesty. Our mining ships have 50 times safety margins. We consider that the minimum acceptable for civilian operations. If we built something with the military in mind, with no cost considerations, no civilian requirements, just pure focused engineering for combat. She shook her head. I don't want to imagine what that would look like. Neither do I, Captain. They stood in silence for a moment, looking out at the unbreakable labor. There's something else you should know, Chen said quietly. About human psychology. We're very loyal to our friends. If someone attacks the Empire now, they're attacking our allies. We might not have warships, but we have a lot of mining equipment, and we'd use it to help. The Empress felt a strange mix of relief and continued unease. You defend the Empire? Of course. That's what allies do. We might be naive about galactic politics, but we understand friendship. You trusted us when you had every reason to be afraid. We won't forget that. Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me yet. Let's see how this all works out first. Chen left shortly after, returning to her ship. The Empress watched the unbreakable labor depart, heading back to human space and its mining operations. Counselor Felix joined her at the window. Do you think we made the right choice, Your Majesty? I think we made the only choice, the Empress replied. We couldn't fight them. We could barely communicate with them. Friendship was the only logical option. They're dangerous. Yes, but now they're dangerous on our side. I'll take that over the alternative. What if they change? What if future generations of humans aren't as peaceful? The Empress considered that. Then we hope the treaty holds. And we hope they remember we chose friendship when we could have chosen fear. And if that's not enough, then the galaxy will learn what humans build when they're actually trying to make weapons. And we will all pray to whatever gods we believe in. The months that followed were strange but productive. Human mining technology revolutionized Imperial industry. Imperial navigation systems improved human FTL efficiency by 40%. Trade flourished. Cultural exchanges began. Humanity integrated into galactic civilization faster than any species in history. And through it all, the human mining ships continued their work, processing asteroids, harvesting gas giants, dismantling dead moons for raw materials, never aggressive, never hostile, just eternally, efficiently working. Commander Thar, who had been promoted to human liaison officer, watched a mining operation one day from the observation deck of a joint human-Vorathian research station. Do they ever stop working? Asked his assistant, a young officer who hadn't lived through the initial panic. Rarely, Thar replied. Humans think rest is inefficient. They're strange. They're human. It's different. The assistant watched as a human mining ship casually tore apart an asteroid 3 times its size. Sir, I've read the old reports. The ones from when we thought they were building warships. Were we really that afraid of them? Thar looked at the young officer. You didn't see what I saw. You didn't watch our entire fleet fail to scratch their paint. You didn't realize that those mining lasers could cut through our hulls like paper. You didn't do the math on what they could build if they wanted to. But they didn't want to. Exactly. They didn't want to. That's the only thing that saved us. Thar turned away from the window. The Empire has faced many threats in its history, military powers, aggressive species, territorial disputes. We defeated them all because we understood them. They were predators and we knew how to fight predators. And humans aren't predators. They're builders. They solve every problem by making better tools. Our weapons are tools for killing. Their tools are for surviving. And survival tools, it turns out, are far more dangerous than weapons. I don't understand, sir. You will eventually. But let me give you one piece of advice, young officer. If you ever see humanity start building something they call a defensive platform or system defense ship, run. Don't ask questions. Don't file reports. Just run. Why? Because that would mean humanity finally realized what they are. And on that day, the galaxy will learn what terror really means. Far away on a human colony world, a young girl looked up at the stars. Mama, why are the aliens scared of our mining ships? Her mother, an engineer working on the colony's new processing facility, smiled and ruffled her daughter's hair. Because, sweetie, they finally understand what we build those ships to survive. What do we survive? Everything, baby. Humans survive everything. That's what makes us human. In orbit above them, a mining ship began its daily work. Cutting, processing, building, never stopping, never slowing. Just humans doing what humans do best, engineering a future where safety wasn't a luxury, but a guarantee. And if that future was terrifying to everyone else, well, at least it was a safe kind of terrifying. The galaxy would learn to live with it. Because really, what choice did they have?